How's it going? Motor City Miner here coming at you from the farm. Today we're actually going to be talking CMP 10210s. So these cards are awesome. I mean, I love them. So they're really good at anything that uses memory like Zealous, Flux, Kapow, um, Ergo, anything that is a little more memory hardened. Awesome. But I want to do a video today on airflow. So you can see I have my 4 rigs here, and 2 of them are really hot and 2 of them are fine. If I hover over these, all the temps are fine. These are in really hot ambience. It's been super hot here in the Midwest lately. Like, oh my gosh, so hot and humid. It is so hard to keep the farm cool. So originally when I set these up, I had these they're all in those mini Octominers. And these 2 I haven't switched over yet, but are in normal airflow direction. So we're actually going to be swapping these over to a reverse airflow, essentially suction mode. And with a bunch of taping and stuff, I have been able to optimize cooling on these cards. So even in like 110-degree temps, which is what the temp is in the Green Squadron room right now, I am running below 70 on all my modified rigs where I modified the airflow to go in reverse. Now, if you watched Oval Boar's movie on this, RIP, me and him, we bought a whole bunch of these cards and we were fiddling with them a ton. But he did a good video on these cards and how the optimal airflow on them is reverse of a typical card. They really, really love having airflow come from the bracket side of the GPU, which is the reverse of normal. Normally, blower styles always blow out the bracket side. And open air, or not open air, but like non-blower style ones still like are designed to want to move air out of the system, which is typically out of the bracket side. But yeah, these, for whatever reason, love being in reverse to stay cool. Now, originally when I set up these rigs, I didn't bother because they were staying perfectly fine and cool the opposite way. But now that it's really hot at the farm, I am, as you can see, having problems. So knowing that what me and Eric had determined that they do work better in reverse, we had only really tested it on a card by card basis, not in an actual rig. So I was curious to see what would happen if I did indeed swap the direction on an Octominer, while also limiting how many holes are available for air to get, sucked in. I want to make sure the air is being sucked in through the GPU bracket straight into the cooler on these cards, which is not exactly the easiest thing. Most cases this won't work with because most cases these days are, more than 2-slot width. But I thought with these it would work great, and sure enough, it has. These 2 rigs are running cool, and these 2 I have not switched yet. So I'm going to kind of go over, we're going to hop out of the computer. I'm going to go over the process of how to modify these mini X12 rigs for a CMP 10210 optimal airflow, and how you can cool these cards considerably. Again, it is hot at the farm. And I'm able to cool these, as you can see here, these 2. So we're gonna hop out of the computer, show you how to do this, and then we'll hop back into the computer to see the results after we have reversed the airflow. But really excited to get this to you guys.
All right, so we're in the Green Squadron room. We're working on these rigs. You can see I've already done 2. As you can see down there, they're in reverse, and we're working on these. So for the CMP 100 210s, in these mini cases, again, they fit perfectly because they're dual slot, but the length of these cards, especially with the dongle coming out the back, is very tight, so I had to move the fans to the exterior. But this is what it looks like in standard configuration, except with the fans on the exterior. But the airflow is still being sucked in and pushed out, and air is coming out the backside. Now, like I said, these cards, because the chip is near this end of the cooler, really like to go in this airflow direction. So we need to essentially flip these around, still on the outside of the rig, but take them off, flip them around so they're sucking through. We'll tape up all these gaps like what we did on those, and that'll force the air to get sucked in through all these brackets. Now, unfortunately, this process, if you did set them up this way already, kind of sucks because now I literally have to take every single card out because I can't get to the screws for these fans, which mount from the inside, without taking all these out. So I'm going to have to take out all these, but if you haven't put these cards in yet, do it before you put the cards in. But yeah, I'm going to be taking out all these. So once I get all these out, unplug them all, and flip these fans, you will check back at that time. So I have the fans reversed now. You can see that they're pointing out now. This is the back side. For fan wiring on, if you put them on the outside of Octominers, I've always found this little slot is wide enough to put the wires through right above the SSD there. But this is a good stopping point because really important thing to note, especially with the CMP 100 210s, but also any card that's rather long and has a plug at the back of the card, you're going to want to put the grills for the fan on the inside of your case. It's a little extra step, but it's worthwhile because inevitably these wires are very close to these fans, and due to suction or just tension in the wire, they inevitably touch this back wall and would touch the fan and get sucked in and get shredded, which we don't want. So make sure you put the fans on the inside to protect your wires. So we're going to load up the rest of the 10 here, and then we're going to go over the taping process, and then we'll see our results on how much cooler this rig will run now with optimal airflow for the CMP 100 210s. So one last thing before we button up and get to the taping. Everything, again, is very important. We are trying to get airflow only through these front brackets, not the upper ones or anything. So you want to put this bar, and if you have a foam insert, that's even better, as close to that side as possible. That way, it's really going to force the air down into your coolers and suck it underneath. Again, we're just trying to make the air go where we want it to go, which is directly through the brackets. So yeah, we're going to button this up now, and then we'll be hop right back to go over the taping. So the final and arguably most important step in this whole process is the taping. So you can see what I've done here. You're going to need 3 pieces of tape. You're going to have one long one that you're going to put across all these holes at the top of the case and wrap around to this side to capture your holes over here. Obviously, your screws are going to cause, bubbles, but as long as it's fully sealed, you're fine. And then you're going to need 2 thin pieces to cover up these first 2 empty slots, because the first 2 GPUs on an X12, even on these mini ones, are 3 slot rather than 2. So we want to make sure that the air is going through the GPU bracket, not through these cavities. These ones you're going to want to leave open just because the negative pressure will suck air towards the CPU in the CPU cooler. So definitely leave those open. But these ones you're going to want to close just so anything on this side is getting sucked into the GPUs. But yeah, that's about it. There's no other holes on this, so you don't have to do anything on the front or anything. Again, here's the front for you. But yeah, there's no other holes you got to do. It's really just 3 pieces of tape, but arguably the most important step. So yeah, I'm going to throw this on the shelf now, boot it back up, and we'll head on over to the computer after I get the other one fixed, and we'll see how cool these run now that they have been optimized for airflow for these cards.
So we're back in the computer, and you can see, look at this. Everything is beautifully cool. Yeah, like it works like a charm, guys. If you're running these cards and you're putting them in an Octominer, specifically these mini Octominers, I assume it would probably even help in a larger regular X12 Octominer, but you'll just have to, tape up a lot more slots. But again, ideally these want to be in a tight packed case, a very close spacing, 2 slot card spacing. That's just how these coolers are. You want as much of that airflow going through those coolers as possible. So any gaps, even if you tape the entry gaps, if you're in a 3 slot configuration, there is going to be air movement not going through these coolers. But if you've done what I have done, you will see that these are so much cooler. I mean, there is no longer any issues with these cards. They're all low 60s in a super hot ambient environment. Um, like I said, right now, I believe it's 110 degrees in the Green Squadron room. Um, and they're just rocking it, low 60s, passively cooled, just perfect, honestly. I am trying to work on a method to get my rooms even cooler, so there'll be an update on that in the near future. Um, and hopefully that'll. Again, I like to go for efficiency. I am so big and have so many cards at this point. Not that it looks like it. I mean, it says I only have 184 GPUs online right now. That's what. Well, because that's what I do have online, and 25 are offline because heat issues at the moment that I need to address. But realistically, I have like 400 plus GPUs, and I'm just not running most of them. Um, and HiveOS just stops tallying them when they've been offline for I think over 24 hours. It drops them off your numbers. But anyway, yeah, really hot in the farm. Want to work on the cooling so that I can run a lot more cards. Um, Usually in the winter it's fine, but I'm trying to find a way to make it work in the summer. But yeah, reverse airflow on these CMP 100 210s or the Tesla V100 if you have that VBIOS. I do plan to unmix this rig. Essentially, my plan is, and why these are off at the moment, these A2000s, I'm going to move these to different rigs. And my plan is to have 6 CMP 100 210 rigs. I love these cards. Um, I know a lot of people don't mind memory algos anymore or have moved on, but I've always believed in projects that use those memory. I do really like a lot of those projects. Not financial advice, but uh, again, I have so many cards at this point. It's good for me to diversify. So I have things mining core algos. I have things mining Kapow, even though it's super power hungry, and I have things mining a whole slew of other coins. So you do you. But my plan is to have 6 of these CMP 100 210 rigs, and I think I'm gonna have when I swap these all out, I'll have 5 Tesla V100 12 card rigs and one um, what are they called? The one with the CMP 100 210 BIOS, which are slightly inferior, but there are ways to overclock them to on most algorithms at match the output of the Tesla V100 VBIOS version. It is algo specific though, is what I found. There are some algos where the CMP 100 210 VBIOS does not seem to perform as well, even when you get it's usually on the efficiency front, is what I'll say. Um, we'll go into that a little more detail in a future video, when I talk about these cards in much more detail. But yeah, that's the plan. Is to have 6 of these rigs, one with the CMP 100 210 VBIOS, so I can help people that buy those cards, and 5 with the Tesla V100 because I do prefer that VBIOS. So yeah, again, running super cool. You can see again 60, 61, 62, maybe a 63 here and there. But yes, reverse airflow on these cards is what you want, and preferably in a server case. Um, I don't think these cards would work very well at all in an open air rig. I have not tried it. I know Eric kind of tried it a little bit, just because he did his one card testing and they're kind of open. But in that case, he used like a jerry rig fan and like what was it called? Ziploc bag setup to make sure air was going into the card. But yeah, definitely don't recommend these in an open air rig by any means. So before we end for the day, I do want to quickly talk about where you can get these cards. Again, I will have a future video that talks more in depth about these cards specifically and tuning them, and the differences between the CMP 100 210 VBIOS and the Tesla V100 VBIOS. Like I said, right now I do have this mix rig, which I plan to unmix. Um, but that'll be in a future video. But before we get to that, I do want to talk about where you can get these. These guys have been awesome to work with. They're not. This is. I'm not sponsored by them. They didn't give me anything to give them this shout out. I've just, I have a bunch of these cards and I've been fiddling with them, and they've been really great to work with and kind of answer any questions and backstory that I have asked. So I do want to briefly talk about where you can get them and other things that they offer from this seller/reseller. So we're going to hop over to both eBay and their official website here in a moment. I'm over on eBay now, and you can see I brought up respec.io, the store. So this is where you can buy specifically these CMP 100 210s. They used to have 100 200s as well, but I believe they sold out of those, unfortunately. If you were interested in those, they were slightly inferior, um, but were also did actually have active cooling. They had a blower style. But yeah, you can go to their graphics video card section and you will find all kinds of graphics cards, including the CMP 100 210 VBIOS, V100 VBIOS, and the CMP VBIOS. They have broken them out now, and this is actually this is something I helped them with. Again, we had a lot of back and forth on these cards as I was doing tons of tests on them, kind of fiddling with them, asking them questions on the backstory and history of these cards, where they came from. And we found, or at least I found, in the whole bunch that I had gotten, a very consistent way to be able to figure out which was which. So they did not know, because they do look completely identical when shipping these originally. They did not know which ones came with which. So it was kind of, a crapshoot. Sometimes you get the CMP VBIOS, and sometimes you get the V100 VBIOS. And I noticed through all the ones I got and lining them, I inventory every card I ever received, serial number, where it goes in my farm, got a massive spreadsheet, want to track, ROI, when I first started using the card, how long they last for, all that fun stuff. I have a giant spreadsheet, which I really should show you guys at some point. Anyway, but I noticed an odd pattern between serial numbers. Um, and we kind of did a trial run. I ordered a few more, and they sent me some at my request in certain serial number ranges. Um, and lo and behold, you can tell what VBIOS these cards have by their serial number. So once I figured that out for them, they did split these up and give them two different listings so that you can save some money if you want the inferior one. Um, so that's kind of cool. Again, working with these guys has been great. They're super communicative. But yeah, this is their eBay store. I'll put a link down below to how you can go about, um, purchasing from them. And then you'll notice actually in the URL at the top here, it says BitPro Consulting, which is not respec.io. So what is that? And you're like, and what is that? That is their other side of their business. That's their actual LLC, is my understanding. But they have a purchasing division side as well called bitpro.com. Now, if I'll put this link down below as well, and I have verified this. I have sold a bunch of things to them, um, just to get some money to reinvest in other things, or even they'll even do trades. So, if you want to trade some older GPUs like 5000 series for anything they have in stock, they will gladly do that as well. Obviously, depending on value, you might have to trade in more or less to get what you're aiming for, but super easy process here. This is their website, link down below. You can sell any GPU mining equipment or AI equipment. They do not accept ASICs or FPGAs. But yeah, pretty much anything for GPU mining is on the table. CPU mining as well. And they also do take RAM and hard drives as well, both SSD and HDD. So again, I didn't sell any of that stuff. I sold them mostly GPUs, or again traded GPUs. But really great guys to work with. And like I said, bitpro.com is just their purchasing side where they buy from miners.
Now, I will say some things on this. This really is geared towards people that either don't have the time or the money or know how to sell their own gear, or more commonly, people like me that have a ton of stuff that would take me a huge amount of effort and time to sell on my own, and I'm just not really meant to be a buyer and seller. That's just not my business. My business is mining. I don't have. I'm a one man operation. I don't have the time to do all the inventory and stuff required to be a true buying and selling business. So with that in mind, most of these, because there are a couple competitors like Nerd Gears will buy your equipment as well. There's a few others that'll buy your equipment. Just know that really they're offering a service, so you can get more for your equipment selling it yourself. So that's why I said really it's geared more towards big farms or medium to big farms like myself, where I just don't have the time to deal with listing 100 plus GPUs, especially when they're not all the same model. Because you know, especially when they're um, hard to get. You just get what you can get. So yeah, creating hundreds of listings is just not something I have time for or need. So I'm more than willing to, essentially take less for the cards in exchange for the ease of process, where you just box them all up and send it to someone, and they just give you a nice check afterward. Obviously, they'll pay you in cash, crypto, PayPal, Zelle, or even says check or bank wire. I specifically was doing Zelle, I believe, and PayPal, or I traded. It doesn't mention that on here, so definitely reach out to them. Just again, all this is on their website, link down below. But definitely just reach out to them if you have a specific thing you want to do, like trading. Say you have a bunch of 2070s, you have 8 2070s, and you want to buy some of their 30 series. Obviously, you won't have enough to get 830 series, but say it works out to like 4 3070s or whatever. They will gladly trade hardware. So that's definitely a method to go as well. Obviously the exact trade rates will depend on what you're offering versus what you're trying to get. So obviously get in touch with them if you are planning to do trading, but they will trade parts, which is really, really awesome. That way, you eliminate paying taxes and all that other fun stuff that you would have to do by selling them your stuff and then buying from their same store. Because buying on eBay, you're going to get hit with fees, both them as the seller and you as the buyer, specifically as the buyer getting hit with, taxes. But them as the seller. So, it's a win win for everyone if you are trying to trade up, so to speak. So I did, in fact, trade them a bunch of 20 series, just because I don't need them anymore, and they've been sitting around forever. I think I don't even know. They might have all sold already. I'm not really sure. Oh man, I think they're on here. Oh no, here's some 2070s. So these were mine. These Zotacs here. I think I had like 20 of them or something that I sent their way, and traded into these CMP 100 210s. And I had a couple others. But again, really awesome guys to work with. Really appreciate, specifically Mark. He's been great to work with. That's who I've been talking with most of the time. But they do have a pretty large team, so it's not just one guy. But that's just who I've been talking with. So links down below to both their eBay store and their like purchasing division if you were trying to trade or sell them equipment. And like I said, just been really great to work with, and I really, really do love these CMP 100 210 cards for memory intensive algos. One last thing of note on the VBIOS is I prefer the V100 just because it requires less tinkering to get to maximum efficiency and hash rate. But the CMP VBIOS, um, for the most part, on most algorithms, I found that you can get up to the V100 performance with a decent amount of tinkering in most cases. And overclocking is what I mean. But there are some specific algorithms where either you can match the hash rate performance of the V100, but not the efficiency. So you use more wattage to hit the same efficiency. or vice versa, is essentially that probably the V100 VBIOS is changing the actual internal timings, kind of similar to, doing your BIOS edits on a 5000 AMD, or an RX 580 or something like that. Whereas overclocking doesn't actually change your timings; it just changes your actual megahertz values and stuff. So I think there is some benefit to the V100. So do your own research, decide if it's worth the money. I'm hoping to have future content that'll help show how both these work. That's why I do want to have a full CMP VBIOS rig and then the 5V100s, just so I can help you guys who have the CMP VBIOS versus the V100, kind of show you what you have to do to hit the best or similar performance to the V100 in the future. So there'll be future content on that. Um, but yeah, comment down below if that's something that'll interest you. But that is what I am planning on that front. So that's all I got for today on my CMP 100-210 optimization of airflow and cooling. I really hope this helps you guys cool your cards, your CMP 100-210 specifically. I don't think it would work for most other cards. But for these cards, they definitely want it in reverse, it seems. So definitely comment down below if you've tried this yet and seen this difference as well. Like, subscribe, and that's all I got on my CMP 100-210s. Until next time.